Cyprus is a large island in the eastern Mediterranean. Due to its advantageous geographical location, power over the island made it possible to control all trade routes in the eastern Mediterranean. Since the island was quite valuable, it constantly changed hands over the centuries. In 395, after the division of the Roman Empire into Western and Eastern, the island of Cyprus came under the rule of the Byzantine Emperor. Beginning in 650, the Arab Caliphate, which was rapidly gaining strength, began to attack Cyprus. Because of this, in 688, an agreement was concluded between the Byzantine Emperor Justinian I and the righteous Caliph, according to which a joint Byzantine-Arab government was established on the island. This went on for more than 300 years, until in 958 the Byzantine troops drove out all the Arab garrisons from the island. From that moment on, the island was again completely under the control of the Byzantine Empire. In 1183, a relative of the Byzantine Emperor Isaac Komnenos, at the head of a detachment of mercenaries, landed in Cyprus and proclaimed himself the despot of the island, and sometime later the Emperor of Cyprus. In turn, the Byzantine Emperor Isaac II Angel tried to regain control of the island, but Komnenos, with the support of the Sicilian king William II, managed to repulse the attack of the imperial troops. Trying to improve relations with neighbors, Isaac Komnenos agreed with the Sultan of Egypt that the harbors of Cyprus would be closed to the Crusaders, which, as time showed, was a fatal mistake. In 1191, during the Third Crusade, Richard the Lionheart landed in Cyprus and, having broken the resistance of local troops, established control over the island. Since Richard did not need territories so remote from his native kingdom, and also because of the urgent need for money, in the same year he sells Cyprus to the Templars for 100,000 bezants. Already in 1192, the local population raised an uprising against the Templars. Therefore, Richard had to buy the island back and sell it to the former king of Jerusalem, Guy de Lusignan. After the death of Guy de Lusignan, his brother Amri became the new ruler of the island, who proclaimed himself King of Cyprus. The Kingdom of Cyprus lasted until 1489, when the last Queen of Cyprus, Catherine Cornaro, abdicated and transferred power over the island to the Republic of Venice. The Venetians made many efforts to protect the island from a possible invasion, but this did not help. In 1571, the island fell under the rule of the Ottoman Sultan. From that moment on, the first Turkish community appeared on the island. The Ottomans pursued a traditional policy for the conquered Christian territories on the island, which consisted in the fact that the entire non-Muslim population had to pay an additional tax of jizya. The Greeks who inhabited the island were quite enterprising people. Many of them converted to Islam in order not to pay tax, but at the same time they continued to secretly profess Christianity. Under the rule of the Ottomans, there were two communities on the island, Christian and Muslim, which had certain rights to self-government. Cyprus was under the rule of the Ottomans for several centuries, until in 1878 the British Empire offered the Sultan, who had lost another Russian-Turkish war, to stand up for the interests of the Ottoman Empire if the Russian Empire, in addition to the occupied cities of Batum, Kars and Ardagan, would require additional territories in the Asia Minor. Naturally, the British agreed to help the Ottoman Empire not for free, but in exchange for gaining control of the island of Cyprus. After the landing of the British troops, the local government of the Ottoman Empire remained on the island for a long time. The situation changed in 1914, after the Ottoman Empire entered the First World War on the side of the German Empire. The Ottoman government in Cyprus was abolished, and all power on the island passed into the hands of the British Empire. After the end of the First World War, the Greek population of the island periodically rioted and demanded unification with Greece. The local British administration, in order to maintain its power, often attracted reserve police recruited from the Muslim population to suppress riots, which did not contribute to mutual understanding between the two communities of Cyprus. In 1955, armed clashes between Greeks and British soldiers took place, as a result of which the EOK organization was created, the name of which can be translated into English as the Union of Fighters for the Liberation of the Nation. This organization began to attack the British authorities and soldiers, because of which the British had to increase the number of their garrisons on the island to 30,000 soldiers. Also, in opposition to the organization of the Greek Cypriots, with the support of the British government, a militant organization was created, the Turkish Cypriots, which was called TMT, which can be translated into English as the Turkish Defense Organization. Despite the measures taken, by 1959 it became clear that the British government would soon lose control of Cyprus. To minimize losses in 1960, negotiations were organized between Great Britain, Greece and Turkey. As a result of these negotiations, Cyprus gained independence, but at the same time, two military bases on the island of Dhekelia and Akrotiri remained under the control of the British military, while Turkey and Greece introduced small military contingents to the island to maintain order. In 1960, the Republic of Cyprus was proclaimed, the constitution of which provided for the existence of two self-governing communities. Greek, which included about 80% of the population of the island, and Turkish, which consisted of about 20% of the population of the island. For the Turkish Cypriots, quotas were set, according to which their representation in the police and the state apparatus was to be 30%, and in the army 40%. Despite the proclamation of the independent Republic of Cyprus, the idea of unification with Greece was very popular among many Greek Cypriots. The Turkish Cypriots did not like this idea, and among them the idea of secession from the Republic of Cyprus became increasingly popular. Tension between the two communities of Cyprus was constantly growing. In order to reconcile both communities in 1963, the first president of Cyprus, Archbishop Macarius III, proposed a number of constitutional amendments that were supposed to smooth out the contradictions between the communities. In turn, the leaders of the Turkish community not only did not accept these amendments, but also refused any participation in the authorities of the Republic of Cyprus. Already at the end of 1963, violent clashes began between the Greeks and Turks who lived on the island. After these clashes, virtually the entire Turkish population was concentrated within a small number of enclaves. The contradictions between the two communities escalated to the maximum in 1967 after the regime of the colonels came to power in Greece, who proclaimed the unification of Cyprus to Greece as one of the main goals. On July 15, 1974, with the support of the regime of black colonels, the Cypriot National Guard overthrows President Macarius, who was forced to flee to London. Nikos Samson, an ardent supporter of unification with Greece, becomes the new president. Turkey took advantage of the coup in Cyprus, which launched an invasion of the island on July 20, 1974 under the pretext of restoring constitutional order. For the invasion of the island, the Turkish command prepared a rather impressive force, consisting of 40,000 soldiers and 200 tanks. At the same time, the new president of Cyprus had 14,000 soldiers and 32 tanks at his disposal, which allowed the Turks to count on an easy victory. By the time the invasion began, Turkish Cypriots were living in enclaves in the cities of Limassol, Paphos, Larnaca, Famagusta, Nicosia, Limnitis and Lefka. The protection of the enclaves was provided by the armed detachments of the Turkish Cypriots, the exact number of which is difficult to name. The main forces of the Greek Cypriots were located in the central part of the island, as well as in the area of the capital of the island, the city of Nicosia. On July 20th, a Turkish landing force, consisting of 3,500 soldiers and 15 tanks, landed on Pentemilli beach near the city of Kyrenia. After the landing, the Turks began to expand the bridgehead, but were stopped by the arriving Greek infantry battalion and 5 tanks. By evening, additional Greek forces approached the landing site from the central part of the island and began to prepare for an attack on the Turkish bridgehead. The Greek attack began on the night of July 21st. At the initial stage, the Greek infantry managed to overcome the Turkish line of defense and advance 500 meters deep into the bridgehead. In the end, the Greek attack was stopped by heavy Turkish artillery fire, and they were forced to retreat to their original positions. At the same time, the Turks landed troops to support the enclave in Nicosia. The landing was unsuccessful. Almost immediately, the Turks hit the massive fire of the Greeks and, having suffered losses, were forced to retreat. Having received news of the landing of the Turkish army, the Greeks, in accordance with a previously developed plan, launched an attack on Turkish Cypriot enclaves throughout the island. The most successful were the attacks on the enclaves in Paphos and Limassol. The Greeks managed to break the resistance of the Turkish Cypriots and quickly establish control over these enclaves. In the remaining Turkish enclaves, an armed confrontation began. By the time the invasion began, Greek ships were located near the island of Rhodes, which, according to Turkish intelligence, began moving towards Cyprus. The Turkish command ordered its fleet and aviation to take all necessary measures to destroy the Greek ships. To solve this problem, 3 Turkish destroyers from the vicinity of Kyrenia relocated to the vicinity of the city of Paphos, and Turkish aircraft prepared to make a sortie. When 3 Turkish destroyers reached the coast near the city of Paphos, the Greeks, knowing that Turkish intelligence was listening on the air, thanked the Greek ships for coming to the rescue. The Turks did not check the information received and ordered their aircraft to attack the ships, thinking that they were Greek. A battle ensued, during which 2 destroyers were seriously damaged and 1 was sunk. In addition, the Turks lost 3 aircraft out of 48 that took part in the attack. On the morning of July 21st, the Greeks managed to occupy the Turkish enclave in Larnaca. In turn, the Turks received reinforcements on July 22nd, which allowed them to attack the city of Kyrenia. Taking advantage of the numerical advantage of the Turkish army, they managed to drive the Greek troops out of the city and establish direct communication with their enclave in Nicosia. On July 23, 1974, the regime of the colonels was overthrown, due to which the Greek Cypriots could no longer count on military assistance from Greece. Britain tried to intervene in the situation and on July 25 organized peace talks between Greece and Turkey. The negotiations lasted quite a long time, as the Turks demanded the federalization of Cyprus and the Cypriot government did not want to agree to this. By August 14, Turkey landed additional detachments on the island, thanks to which the Turkish group on the island increased by 40,000 soldiers and 180 tanks. By this time, the Greek Cypriots managed to organize a line of defense around the Turkish bridgehead, concentrating most of the available tanks for the defense of Nicosia. On August 14, the Turks launched a simultaneous offensive in 3 directions. Due to the fact that the group that was advancing on Famagusta had about 80 tanks at its disposal, it was able to quickly break through the Greek defenses, forcing the Greek troops to retreat in the vicinity of Famagusta. At the same time, the Turks attacked the main Greek forces located in the vicinity of Nicosia, but, faced with fierce resistance, they could not advance in this direction. On August 16, having broken the resistance of a few Greek detachments, the Turkish army managed to take Famagusta. On the same day, the Turkish units advancing in the western direction were able to push back the Greek detachments besieging the enclaves in Lefka and Limnitis. This ended the fighting. The so-called Green Line was created, which divided both the island itself and its capital Nicosia into two parts. In 1983, on the part of the island occupied by Turkish troops, the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus was proclaimed, which was recognized only by Turkey. Attempts to unite the island began to be made from the moment the hostilities ended, but due to existing disagreements, they did not bring any result. If you liked this video, be sure to subscribe to my channel and click on the bell.